It's going to be fun. And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. As you guys could all see right now on the screen, you guys are all in for a treat, as well as myself. We have one of the truly most well-respected people in this entire hobby, Mr. Pokemon Classics. And Matt, I just want to say thank you so much for doing me the most generous of favors and donating to me your time. And I love talking Pokemon, and I know you're also one of those people that love to talk Pokemon. Now, for the very, very small few amount of people here who may not know who you are, feel free to introduce yourself. And we were talking a little bit before the live. I think you have a pretty awesome backstory, and I'm sure you're going to get into that, like you're, real early on in your Pokemon journey. But again, just thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. Big fan. So happy to appear on this channel. And I know you guys have some of the best followers out there with great chats, having great comments. I've been part of those myself. So living the dream here. I mean, remember Paul Rudd on Hot Ones when he's like, look at us. That's how I'm feeling right now. But anyway, I'm Matt, Pokemon Classics on YouTube. And my collection story is one that goes back to the very beginning. It was 1999. All of my friends in elementary school were majorly into Pokemon, especially the card game. And to me, I viewed it as just another passing fad initially. I didn't want anything to do with it. But then once I got taken out to the card store and found the first card, then the addiction, the passion was instantly kindled. And since then, it's been pretty continuous. I mean, there's been some small breaks here and there for life events and for college and for other things, but there's never really a point where I totally walked away or sold off everything. So it's been fulfilling childhood goals that I'd started way back when that have continued now into my adult life. As far as getting into it, really, there was a local league at the mall in my hometown. And my brother and I, some neighborhood friends would all make the trek up there, Minnesota winters and everything, on our bikes, about 2 miles every weekend to go play cards, to trade cards, to buy cards. And eventually one of the workers, one of the employees at the league ended up moving. And it was a pretty formative moment for me in my childhood. But one of the other gym leaders that was there tossed me a shirt. He's like, you want to do this? You've proven yourself responsible. And I think I was like maybe 12 at the time. And it just seemed like such a major weight thrust upon my shoulders. And I'm like, I can't mess this up. I've got the stamper. I'm in charge of stamping other people's books. They're trusting me not to steal like the promo cards and stuff. And so after a couple of years of doing that, eventually the other gym leader that started it moved away as well. So then I kind of took over the league, working with some of the employees there that knew nothing of Pokemon. And we would set up the tables out in the mall, file the paperwork with Wizards of the Coast. Still remember like the store name and number and all the background information that you had to fill out to run a league. And I think that was a really big moment for me to have that responsibility and that sense of community. So that's been something that's been present for me ever since the beginning.
I know we both have your stamp. Do you still have the stamp?
Yeah. That's awesome. Actually, I have it on my wall along with my original gym leader shirt and then the original badges that I won before I became a gym leader. And then a couple of the cards that I had early on. I know we were talking about this one. My first card ever was a shadowless Raichu that I bought with some friends at a birthday party. We went to the card store. That's the one that I wanted. Card. Not really sure what drew me specifically to Raichu, but bought that one. That's what started the passion. And it's in terrible condition, but it's one of my most treasured items.
That's all that matters. And that's a shadowless one too.
It is. Yeah. I mean, this was early on and I had no idea what that was at the time, but fortunately here it is.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, and your mall, was it like a EB Games or a GameStop or anything like that? Or was it more just in the center of the mall kind of thing? Because our league was at Toys R Us near where I live.
Yeah, this one was like a subsidiary of Sam Goody or one of those record companies, Hy-Vee. Okay. Not Hy-Vee, that's the food store. There's like a High Records something or another company. But it was in the mall. And so they had some like mall space within the mall itself. So every weekend when we go there, they drag out all these folding tables and chairs and boxes and benches for kids to sit on. Then when we were done, we had to pack it all up and bring it back in.
Still, it's just awesome that you have those memories. And so before we went live, I was looking at your Instagram, and you don't have like a ton of photos on there, but you show a little bit of your collection. And I had a little chance to look at your eBay page too. And that's something I'm going to link after this video is over. after this video is over, if anybody wants to check out his eBay page, the link will be down below after the video. But I noticed your collection. It's definitely like super heavy into Wizard of the Coast, but like that's the area of the hobby where I feel most comfortable because it's where I know the most. But I want to ask you because your collection seems pretty large. Are there still holes in your collection that you're looking to fill? And can you kind of just walk us through like what was your timeline in the hobby? Like for me personally, I got out real early on in Team Rocket. Like I must have only bought 1 or 2 packs. I didn't even know till after the fact looking at my collection. So are you full Wizard of the Coast talking like from base set all the way up to Sky Ridge, or are you mainly just sticking in like, did you kind of stop with the Neo sets?
Yeah, that's a very fair and valid question. Mainly what I collect is what I grew up collecting because it was just a continuation of finishing off what I'd started when I was younger. That's my primary motivation in the hobby is really just that sense of childhood nostalgia. So my collection is primarily Wizards of the Coast, ending with Neo Destiny, because that's roughly the era where our league shut down and where we didn't have access to cards anymore because eBay really wasn't a thing. So that's really the sets that I was most passionate about. I certainly do have items from other places as well. There's occasional like promos and other things that I like. And so those enter the collection. But my goal has always been from the beginning to collect mainly complete sets from base set all the way through Neo Destiny. And I've accomplished pretty much most of that with graded cards. And so then the goal
All the shinies too, you got
yeah.
all the shinies? Yeah, that's
Yep.
awesome.
So then the goal became kind of following the footsteps of Zach Gem Mint Pokemon. He was a big influence to me when I started grading stuff in like 2011. And he kind of mentored me through that process because I didn't know how to send it in, how do you get it back, what to look for with condition. And I assumed getting tens is like impossible. And I didn't want to assume anything. So when I got like 2 or 3 back in my first submission of like 70 cards or something like that, I was like, all right, let's elevate the bar a little bit. Let's go for some tens. So that became the
Yeah.
goal, is trying to get all the WotC hollows in first edition in tens, with the exception of first edition base set. Even there was no time in my life when I was like, I can afford that. And I still don't
Yeah.
feel like I can, but it's been a fun goal. There's cards that are certainly feeling inaccessible where I'm just acknowledging I'll probably never have them, like the Typhlosion 17 and a PSA 10. But who
Yeah.
knows? And I mean, that's what keeps the hobby interesting is when you have those chase cards.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. But I did see you do have a few first edition base set cards. And but so when you were doing your collection goals, did you ever say just for fun, maybe I'll try to open up some packs and just see what I pull? Or were you just really just going the raw route when you started searching out these real near mint cards?
Yeah, so I do have first edition base set as well. I just never pursued it in tens.
Yep.
That's where it was inaccessible. Packs, I've never really had that opportunity growing up, at least through base set, through maybe the tail end of Team Rocket era. My family just didn't really have the money to buy packs. So it was more of like what I could get trading and occasionally if I saved up money to buy some, but never really sat down with a full booster box. Having said that, in my adulthood, I have opened packs here and there, but it's more of a recreational activity. And like when Evolutions came out, I was really passionate about that because that had some of that nostalgia. Never opened a base
Sure.
set box. So that was really what I could do to kind of re-experience something that I never got to.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And that's one of those things. It's, even when I guess everything's relative too, but even when some of those more vintage packs were cheap, it's like you wish you could go back and open them and buy them because maybe that would have been like one of your few opportunities to do it. But you don't really know because like you were talking, you are focused on what your goals are, trying to fill in spots in your collection, stuff like that. And then you really went on the more high end, trying to go after, the gem mint Pokemon route and go intense. Like that is definitely a much tougher route. Now, what about the e-reader sets? Have you ever thought about saying, okay, I'll dabble a little bit in like Expedition, Aquapolis, Skyridge, or are you just kind of staying away from those? Because thinking about it, like those are tough sets just to acquire the cards. Like forget about price, just like trying to get the cards is one thing.
There's a high probability, I think, at some point where I'll just be at such a stalemate with collecting that I'll be like, all right, I need to do something. And I'm already experiencing that to some degree. Like there's always these little weird, I don't know, tangents that we get on as collectors. I think everybody does.
Oh yeah.
So I could see myself branching into those at some point or another. At one point, I really liked Legendary Collection. That was a collection that I didn't initially care about because it wasn't one that was around when I was collecting initially and at the league.
Yep.
And to me, it was one of those reprint sets initially where base set 2 to me was always like the stepbrother that nobody really cared about. Like just push that to a side, pretend like it doesn't actually exist. But
yeah.
Yeah, so I do anticipate that at some point or another, the taste will change or just that desire to have something to collect will kick in again. And so other areas.
So when you started going after a Legendary Collection a little bit, did you start picking up some reverse hollows and stuff?
Yeah, so one of the collection purchases I made, and it was a pretty substantial one years and years ago. We're talking like maybe, I don't know, 2013 or something, had a full reverse hollow set in the purchase. And some of the cards were in mediocre condition, but most were really solid. I think I still have the whole set just raw, with the exception of the Charizard was the only one I took the time to grade at this point. But then it was like, well, if I have all the reverse hollows, I should probably start collecting the regular ones too.
Yeah.
And that's a big set. So it was never like a primary goal, but it was just something that I was like, if I find something or a collection that I'm buying and it has some of those cards in it, I'll just throw them in the binder for now and fill in the holes as we go.
Do you remember what your Charizard reverse from Legendary Collection graded?
That one came back in 9.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty minty reverse hollow set if that came back in 9.
Yeah, most of the set was looking like 8 to 9 range with maybe a couple 10s in there. And I probably should dig it out at some point from storage and try to grade some. But the idea of having like mismatched grades in a complete set just drives me a little bit crazy. So then I'd be tempted to like start selling them and buying the ones that I need. And I'm just not ready to open Pandora's box yet for that.
Yeah. Once you start going down that rabbit hole, there's no way back.
Yeah. So I was like, we'll just keep them raw for now and we'll figure that out in the future.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you showed a photo too. You have just like a ton of, I guess you call it like bulk revert or shadowless, commons, uncommons that I saw a photo, you were just sorting through what looked like endless piles of that.
Yeah, I think that was like 5 or 6 years ago, but I have several boxes of thousands and thousands of commons and uncommons, shadowless, first edition, you name it, from base set through Neo Destiny. I've never bothered to grade them. I haven't sold them as singles. So anytime I bought sets or collections or whatever, they've just been sorted, stashed in boxes, put into storage.
Yeah. So are they various conditions? Or are they all pretty close to near mint?
The shadowless ones are mainly near mint, but there is a sizable pile that's in a separate box that's played. And I kind of like break up my storage in that way, where there's like the played cards, which aren't sorted at all because I don't know, I just haven't really prioritized that. And then I have a couple boxes of like organized by set and which cards. So you might have like, I think with the shadowless ones, for example, there was like a stack of 56 shadowless Charmanders or something that were near mint or better.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's too bad you didn't have all those graded. And when the boom happened, you would have been sitting on 50 plus, graded Charmanders.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And so one of the most, I would say it's impressive subjects, just the amount of time and the amount of skill you have at editing. And I know you're not like a video editor by trade. So it is pretty amazing, like the quality of videos you're able to put out. But because you're on this channel and now I get to pick your brain a little bit, because I've always wondered this question watching those videos. Are those like videos you think about where you're like, I got this topic in mind, I want to make a video about it? And does it take you like a few days to make, or are you just gotten to the point where you could like push one of those videos out in a couple hours? Because to me, it looks like almost overwhelming.
It really is at times. As long as we're on this subject, right now, the way you're seeing me, what you're seeing behind me is not behind me. It's actually over on that side. The only way I can watch my monitor and work my keyboard to respond to people in the chat is looking at a monitor that's over here. When I do my filming, I'm looking in a different direction. I have a teleprompter there, but no keyboard. So right now, I have a teleprompter there, but no keyboard. So right now, I decided to film before we did this, my backdrop for 3 minutes, put it on a loop, and you're actually seeing a green screen background right now. So
Oh, crap.
if we're talking about video, that's how I organized it for this. It is a real backdrop. It's just not behind me. It's 90 degrees to the side. I do have a
This is
background.
also a green screen.
Yeah. I do have a background in video production. I was mainly self-taught, but I actually teach high school classes with English classes and video production classes. So I have a little bit of expertise in that area. As
Yeah,
far as
that's
the
awesome.
videos, most of my videos use like specific slides with me in the corner of it. So those slides are things that I've thought about and then have taken a day or two to produce and do some research with. And then the filming is maybe a couple of hours since I have some bullet points. Usually I don't script things out most of the time. And then the editing piece is usually a 5 to 10 hour endeavor of grabbing other clips, screen capturing things from relatable sources to drop in over top as B-roll footage. That way,
Wow.
it's really, I see video making as a show and tell where like the primary content you're delivering, the message is the telling piece, but you also want to show with visuals what you're describing. And so it's a amalgamation of those two things together.
Yeah. No,
It's maddening
I,
at times.
yeah. I mean, like I said, I watch him and and I think that's one thing probably everybody in the chat could agree with. It's like every time we watch one of your videos, you're always left with that sense of like, wow. And no, I think that's awesome that you spend that time and you have that level of detail to it. And sadly, that's one of the reasons I've had to move a little bit more to the lives is because for the lives, it's just as simple as, you know, going live, chatting, and then as soon as it's over, being able to end the stream and there's no editing behind that because of like what you just said, like the amount of time in the background. So I just have so much respect for, what you do there. And yeah, I definitely know there's a lot of people out there probably want to pick your brain even more than I just did.
Well, I'd be happy to talk to people about like equipment or editing or about the process. I love doing this. It's kind of a nerdy passion of mine. And when we can combine that with teaching, which is another of my passions in Pokemon, it becomes like the Triforce trifecta of things that I love. So
Yep.
anytime.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I actually just went out and bought a microphone today because one of my comments in my last video said it was time I get a microphone. So I'm actually going to do it because I figure if I'm going to do the lives, I should have a microphone I speak into.
If you don't mind my asking, what did you end up picking up?
I don't know. Whatever the Amazon special was. See, I should have reached out to you
Fair
before
enough.
I did that. It was like, I don't know. I just went on Amazon. It was like an $80. Let's see my orders. I ordered and it's loaded. Arriving on Thursday. What do we got? It's called the USB microphone with one touch mute and gain knob, MAONO professional condenser computer PC. It's just like one of those huge Amazon
Okay.
descriptions that hits all the keywords.
Gotcha.
But it says for podcasting, recording, gaming, live streaming, Zoom meetings, studio, YouTube. So just got it. So it was probably a shitty microphone. I don't know.
Well, you'd be surprised. Like a lot of those plug and play USB microphones, even if it's not some outlandishly expensive or name brand, makes a
Mhm.
significant difference versus the built in microphone in a laptop or a PC or a webcam. And there's really
Yeah.
like a hierarchy of how you go about upgrading studio equipment. And really, audio is number one, most important. After that, it's lighting, then the camera. And a lot of times people think the camera is inherently going to make them look better. It's not, it's the lighting. So just throwing that out there as
And
a pro tip.
I know I did pull out this, so I do have a ring light, and I tried setting it up, but the cord wasn't long enough to like get it for a good angle. I'm really bad at YouTubing. It's
Well, here's the thing. You picked a great spot to film from because you have adequate lighting. You framed
yeah,
yourself well, where you got a little bit of headroom because you don't want too much or too little. And you're perfectly center of the frame. So we'll
yeah.
give you credit for that.
This is actually like a half bath behind this wall, so it actually goes back this crack. So this wall is like I don't know.
And I will say too,
See,
with your like picture up on the corner, it's oddly reminiscent of Jake's setup too. Okinomics. He always has that like one painting, or he actually moved into his different recording area with his new shelves and stuff. But
yeah,
that's something that I think people have be lovingly, I don't know if that's a word, lovingly teased him about is his simplicity, the
Yeah, well,
minimalistic
that's what
approach.
you can always tell the guy that likes Pokemon cards who has no Pokemon cards in the background. But no, I want to ask you too. So you've been doing, I guess, a little bit of traveling now for Pokemon, at least in the sense that you went to go to the Pokemon Saves the World event. Now, I know you didn't open up a pack while you're there, but like what made you go there? I know there was a few people that ended up going that you also knew, and people we all know, people that have been on this channel before, but I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just primarily the opportunity to hang out with other collectors. And it was a conglomeration of a lot of people that I've known online for a number of years, but never met in person. And so when some people are like, hey, are you coming? And I got an invitation to go, I'm like, I kind of have to. So I took some time off school. It was actually just a day, flew down on Friday, left again on Sunday. So I didn't have a lot of time to hang out and explore and socialize a whole lot outside the event. But it was great. And that's really my primary goal in the community to begin with, is just having those connections and talking to people and just sharing the passion. Because for all of the years that I've done this, it was like the first few years, tons of social aspect running the league. After that,
Yeah.
kind of private basement dwelling collector, buying things offline. It's not even like going to Target because they didn't sell cards for a number of years. Adding things to
Mhm.
the collection, it was just this isolated goal, and now it's more than that. So I'll take that opportunity any chance I get.
Yeah. So I know like Nick Old School Pokemon Catch 'em All Collectibles, Z and G, who's just on this channel, my most recent live, like was that the first time you got to meet those guys, or had you met them before in the past?
Yeah, this was the really the first Pokemon event that I was able to go to. I mean, as you know, Worlds has been
Okay.
canceled for a couple of years. And all of the events that we would typically have, like Worlds, have this terrible habit of landing during the first week where we have in-service training as teachers. And it's very difficult to miss that first week because we have all sorts of trainings and meetings and things that we are required to do for our recertification. And so whenever people are like, yeah, we're going to Worlds, you should come, I'm like, I'd love to, but you already know that I can't. So
Yeah.
uh,
And this was one year I thought about going to Worlds, but then it ended up being in London. So it's like, nope, not traveling overseas right now. Like
same.
it's too much. But what about collecticons? Are you thinking about any collecticons?
I officially booked my tickets and plane tickets and reservations and whatnot for Collecticon in Texas. That's the one that I'm going to do. I'm hoping to get out to at least one other one. Again, the problem is the scheduling didn't really cover the summer, at least not for us. We get done here with school in second week of June, I think, and then we're back in third week of August. So just as far as the scheduling, I think all the Collecticons, with the exception of one, fall into that school year. And I'm hesitant to miss too much time from school, especially this year. We've had massive difficulty filling classes with limited subs. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a cost benefit analysis at that point.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people seem to be going to the Denver one. That's what I feel like a lot of people have been talking about. And then what is it, the North Carolina one, right? I don't even remember
Yeah.
all the spots. Yeah. I think that's the other one people are talking about going there. I'm from like the Northeast for the East Coast, so there's nothing really close to me right now, but I would love to go to one. I get the chance to go to Lee and Hart's Pop Shop, so that was fun. And it wasn't really quite the same as like Pokemon Saves the World event, but it was still fun in the sense that I was able to go there with, people from the channel who I've met through, YouTube and Pokemon, and being able to meet them. One of them's in the chat, Basic Trainer. I don't know if you've ever talked to Basic Trainer, but he's a great guy. So,
He's one of the people I'm looking forward to meeting the most at Collecticon.
oh, see
He's
that
gonna
Basic?
he's gonna sign a Bulbasaur for me. I'm gonna sign something for him. We're gonna get lunch or something. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, Basic Trainer just said in the chat, he said you're on his today's Mount Rushmore of PokeTubers. So that's
I
a huge
appreciate that,
compliment.
man.
But Poke Collectible says he's on the east coast of Australia.
That makes the travel a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. So are you dabbling for anything in Pokemon? So I know you don't really go after modern at all, but do you do any sort of like semi-vintage? Like, have you ever decided to get a little bit out of Wizard of the Coast, start looking at like the Nintendo sets or Diamond and Pearl or anything like that?
Not so much. And when I do transition out of the sets that I'm primarily collecting, it'll probably, I assume, start with the oldest, most vintage ones, which are the e-reader sets.
Mhm.
Having said that, I did purchase a bunch of celebration packs that I had intended on doing like an opening and giveaway thing when I hit 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. But then that
Yeah.
happened like before I received them. So then I was like, I'll do it later. And then school blew up and I just got super busy. I know we were trying to schedule this for a while and it just didn't work out until now. But it's been rough because I still have all of those packs sealed sitting in a drawer and I really, really want to open them.
Yeah.
So
Have you opened any celebrations? Because it's a
no,
super fun
I was
set.
intentionally waiting to do something like special,
Yeah.
and the time came and passed, and I missed that opportunity. So I've just been waiting patiently.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would say so. Once in a while, Pokemon really does it right. And I feel like Celebrations was definitely one of those sets they did really well. There was a ton of it printed. It was super readily available. The pull rates were not impossible. For Celebrations, like you can buy an ETB and it was like an enjoyable experience where some of the super modern stuff they're coming out with now with like massive set size and pull rates are pretty low. And then in order to actually pull the cards you want, like there's all these added layers to modern where Celebrations kind of pulled back all that. And it was just a very enjoyable experience. So I'm looking forward to you open those, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun.
And just seeing those classic cards and having the ability to pull some of those, even though they're not quite the same and they don't have that same level of difficulty or monetary value, I don't really care. It's just about the experience with those. And so uh, it's been hard to delay the gratification of opening them. And I was like, I just need to wait till I have time to do this right and to have it timed out, make it something special that I'll remember instead of just something to just go, I need a video to throw up. So I'm just going to make this haphazardly. I don't want to do that with it.
Yeah. And you were saying how well, you've surpassed 5,000 subscribers, but I saw pretty recently, I would say within the last couple months, you had one of your videos go. I don't know what happened. The YouTube algorithm just decided to pick it up one day and just ran with it. But you had a super, I mean, all your videos should be super successful, but one of your videos, like the algorithm definitely ran with it. You want to tell everybody a little bit about that video?
I don't really know what to tell. Like the video I think was reflecting on like the Pokemon card market changing. And this was back towards the end of 2021, 2021, I think, going into the new year. Just talking about that change from the euphoric mania to now more of the hesitancy and the increase in supply and just some of those dynamics that we were seeing. And I don't feel like there's any special editing. In fact, when I put it up, I didn't feel like there was anything. It might have even been a less well thought out and produced video. And it didn't do particularly well in the first week or so. It was like 12 days after the fact that the algorithm was like, let's have people watch this. So I'm not really
Yeah.
sure why or how. It was kind of a fun run though. I think it went from like 4,000 to 50,000 views in the course of a couple weeks.
That's
It was
awesome.
crazy.
So is that your most successful video now, or?
Yeah, I think that is. There might be one or two that are close to that, but we're talking like for the short period of time that it was up proportionally, definitely the most watched one per capita.
Yeah. No, I like all your videos though. But Basic Trainer said maybe you missed it, but how long did it take you this to build up the most awesome setup on Poke YouTube? So I, if for anybody else out there, again, I'm going to link a description to his Instagram. I definitely recommend you looking at it because he shows like a view of his desktop with he's got like a large monitor in front of him, and it is pretty wild. But now is that like Basic was asking, is that something that you set up like instantly, or was it just building it piece by piece until eventually you got it to where you wanted it?
Yep, it was one piece at a time over the course of about, I don't know, 6 years. I have I'd like to do other video work. It's something that I've freelanced before. Prior to like starting a Pokemon YouTube channel. Like I said, I teach video production. So it's something that I've been doing for quite a while. And it was about making it functional, but then also reflecting my personality and interest. So that's where all the Pokemon pieces came. Most of the stuff that I have in my studio isn't particularly expensive or elaborate. I mean, I guess a couple of the cameras are a bit expensive, but they have the utility of being like, you can take it off when you're done streaming or filming and then take it with when you're photograph a wedding or whatever. So it's not just specifically in one spot all the time.
Okay.
But yeah, it took a long time to do. A lot of trial and error, learning how to connect things, how to light things, that sort of stuff.
Have you got it to where you want it or not quite yet?
It's getting close. What I really like is the functionality of it. And I did a video that talks a little bit about this more, but I think one of the biggest issues a lot of YouTubers have is having the efficiency to just sit down and film something. If you're going to set up like a green screen, that's like, all right, we got to set up the poles for it and then drape the screen, tighten it. Then we need to get the lighting just right. Otherwise it won't key effectively. Then we need to turn all the lightings on. Then we need to get the camera set up, get the battery in it. So I've got it to a point where like I can turn my chair one direction, got a camera there looking through a teleprompter. It's connected to my computer so I can pull up my slides onto the teleprompter. So see my slides that I'm referencing in the video as I'm talking into the camera. Then I've got some stuff happening behind me, which is basically just some lights and signs and Pokemon stuff. And then if I turn 90 degrees, then I've got my editing station and I can preview what I'm doing, adjust audio levels and stuff. So it's basically just sit down, turn on a couple power buttons, hit record, talk miserably, refilm things 50 times because I have a perfectionist mentality and stumble over my words pretty regularly. And then pull it all into the editor and sit down and stare at a screen editing for 5 to 10 hours. That's sort of my workflow.
Yeah. I just, no, it's just funny listening to that because you have it down like to such a science where it's me, I'm just stuttering over myself all the time, like repeating myself, doing all the stuff that just comes with that natural live interaction. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I think we have that in common, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to open up to some questions from the chat. So if the chat does have any questions for Pokemon Classics, feel free to reach it out. It could be on anything. Let's see. I saw one earlier. It's a pretty loosely worded question, but it says, hey Classics, after the influx of graded Wizard of the Coast slabs hit in the market and eventually getting bought into collections, about when and how much do you see those Wizard of the Coast slabs increasing in value? I have an answer to that.
Yeah, you
That
go
is,
first.
I mean, you have to admit that. I mean, so just reading that is a super wide range when you talk Wizard of the Coast slabs. I mean, there's a lot of sets. Are you talking base set, jungle, fossil, base set 2? You know, like, are you talking gym challenge, gym heroes, the Neos, the e-readers? Like, that is a massive amount. And for a lot of that, I think it's just going to come down to condition rarity. Anything that is super populated, like the time of, you know, easy money and Wizard of the Coast slabs, I'm gonna guess he's talking about like commons, uncommons. If he's talking about like, you know, tough hollows to get, like Matt mentioned it earlier in this video, like the T17. That's a card that Matt mentioned, like that's out of his price range. T17 is not going to like start retracing in value anytime soon because of, you know, just the sheer condition rarity of that card in a PSA 10. Now, lower grades are always going to be very attainable for a lot of these Wizard of the Coast cards. But again, it's just going to be moving to condition rarity for a lot of stuff. But then you got to talk about like what sets are you talking about? Some like super obscure, like, you know, reverse hollows. Like I have a bounty out there for a Skyridge reverse hollow Poliwag in PSA 10. It currently has a pop 1 in PSA 10. And I have an open bounty out there for anybody. Currently, my bounty is $200. Like that is a common card that has a $200 bounty. So there will always be like the condition rarity of that card. So I don't know. What do you think?
That was actually going to be my answer as well, as it's such a wide range of cards that we're talking about that it's hard to isolate a specific answer or even a trend. for it because the population, if we're talking like really low population cards, it's going to be a little more immune to those types of sudden surges in supply. We're talking about cards that are already just inherently rare and difficult, like most WotC set cards are just set cards. But if we're talking commons and uncommons, that's something that I was dumbfounded with by the very beginning of the mania when I was watching first edition Jungle Pikachu going for like over $1,000. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. If you buy a box
0
of
cents.
Jungle cards, you're like guaranteed to get at least 20 of those. And when the common card that you're going to get for that price, granted, not all of them are going to grade 10s, basically pays for the box, there's some fundamentals that are problematic there. So I do think
Yeah.
that like we'll see perhaps a shift with commons and uncommons and some of the non-hollow cards that are really easy to find in good condition. Maybe never recovering to the point that they once were at those ridiculous prices. But I do think that some of the more difficult to grade cards and some of the holographic cards, I do think there's a number of collectors out there that are going to snap those up once the price point reaches a certain inflection point for them to consolidate. When that'll be, what the prices will wash out to, I don't really know, and I don't really feel qualified to put a number on it.
Yeah. No, and you brought up like perfect examples of card, like, the Pikachu and the Eevee Unlimited from Jungle, like those you got to keep in mind, like for everybody out there listening, Jungle only had like, what was it, 63 cards in the set. So your chances of pulling Pikachus and Eevee in a booster box, you're talking multiples of that card because it's not a big set, and you're going to pull a lot if you had a full booster box. So there are just some cards that the prices made no sense. But I would also say that that was probably like some of the cards people talked about the most. Like Dan Catch'em Collectibles talks about Pikachus and Eevees from Jungles. Jake's talked about it. I've talked about it. Like it was one of the most glaringly obvious like parts of the hobby where everybody was in agreement that this doesn't make sense. And I bring this question up all the time in my videos. I don't know who the people were out there who was buying that card. Like, I really don't know. Like, it makes no sense. Like, uh,
There's some,
that's just an answer I'll never have for you. But that when we talk, well, at least when I talk about Wizard of the Coast, cards, I'm never talking about, super bulky stuff. Like there is a while that you can crack theme decks, like the Brushfire theme deck, and you could crack like the Overgrowth theme deck because I had Squirtles for the Overgrowth, and for the Brushfire had Charmanders, for the Zap deck had Pikachus. It was just like there was a few theme decks that you could crack and grade the cards and make a ton of money. I mean, that stuff is very irrational market type stuff that should not be sustainable. But anybody that was able to do that in that very small window of time, or had the hindsight and was able to kind of push those cards through a little quicker, every single person who did that, time the market right, did great. And I have nothing wrong with what they were doing. I just have everything wrong with whoever the people were buying that stuff.
yeah, and I don't want to present myself as some sort of market guru. I don't really have any background in financial education. And if I'm being honest, when the hype of the market was at its peak, I did not anticipate the correction being as substantial as it has been for some of the cards that I do think are legitimately rare, valuable, highly desired by people, or even like some of the booster boxes to drop that significantly. But on the other hand, I thought other things were like nonsensically overpriced. And so I guess I was wrong on both of those fronts to some degree, where I'm like, I don't understand why this card is still going up in value. How is this card? How is a Jigglypuff and a PSA 9 like a $300 card or whatever it was? That just didn't
Yeah.
make sense to me. So I don't know.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing too about this. When you talk about irrational markets, it's very hard to be a rational thinker and be able to navigate irrational markets. If anything, it's next to impossible, really. But yeah, so that's the answer for that. I don't know if that was a good enough answer for him. Andrew M said, "Do you know if PSA pack slabs save the crimps over time? Example, does the pressure in the center prevent gravity from pulling the cards through the crimp? I hope that makes sense." And yeah, I understand what he's saying. Like is there enough pressure on the slab, not enough to damage the cards, but enough to not have it move around? And I don't have an answer for you. I would say that I don't own any graded slabs right now. So
Yeah, I've actually never graded a pack. I always thought like the old PSA cases for the packs were absolutely terrible and they were doing more
terrible.
destructive damage to the packs than it was
Yeah.
even worth. Like they didn't even look good to me. I do think the new ones look significantly better. And I am tempted to like get some packs graded or to buy some already graded packs just to have like as display pieces for the different
Yeah.
artworks. But
So when the grading fee was $25, I did send out a few pack art sets of some different sets, and I'm still waiting on those from May of last year. So
I feel your pain. I'm still waiting on an order from I think February of last year, maybe
hmm.
March.
Was it a bulk submission or
I think so. It was only like 40 or so cards, but I think I sent it in the value submission.
mm. Did you send them yourself or did you go through a middleman?
I've always sent cards myself. The first few times that I started grading back in 2011, I absolutely had no idea what I was doing. So it was a little scary to me back then. And back then, you had to actually like download and print out a submission form and fill it out by hand. And I have terrible handwriting too. So that was always a challenge. Like, got to be really careful about this. And then you'd have to pack that up and send it with your cards. So it was a bit different back then, but I've had that experience for so long that I don't really feel the need for a middleman.
Yeah, that was back in the days when they would still send everything back to you in the priority flat rate boxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they've
Uh,
changed the cases on us so many times that that bothers me just a little bit, not enough to bother doing anything about it. But it's like, all right, this case is thicker than this one. This one has a different label on it. This one has the QR code on the back. This one doesn't. Sometimes I get
yeah.
comments from people about that stuff that's been in my collection for a while that's up on an eBay store. And they're like, is this card fake? Like, what? Where's the QR code? I'm like, let me take you back to a simpler time. The year was 2012.
Yeah, it's like the boomer grading at that point. You're like,
Yeah.
listen here, Sonny. uh
There have been some great buyers though that have had conversations with me back and forth in eBay messages, just like asking questions about early trading card days. And I don't always do a great job at responding to everybody's messages on stuff, but every once in a while we'll strike up a really bizarre tangent conversation, even though there's no actual business being transacted.
okay, so Andrew asked, fair enough, the old style was garbage. He was worried about his Wizard of the Coast blister packs due to the crimp and glue. So if you have blister packs, that is different. I thought he was talking about PSA graded slabs. I
Mhm.
thought maybe graded packs could be okay, it could be an alternative. Now, yeah, Wizard of the Coast blister packs, my only advice to you is you have to handle those things super carefully. Like they don't like to be shook around. They do not like to be mishandled. The glue on those things are not great, especially like the shadowless variants of a lot of those. Like the glue was super loose. I don't know what the word, like non-adhesive maybe is the right word. I don't know if you ever deal with any of those older blister packs.
Yeah, I've only had a few enter and leave my collection. I have a couple. But yeah, the adhesives on those blister packs does deteriorate significantly over time. So not even something that I'd be comfortable like displaying just because of the like forward weight of it.
So Ancient Mute said he wants a graded Game Boy collection, like Cool Train Ryan. But kind of talking about Game Boys, did you play the games growing up, like Red or Blue?
Yep, red was my game. My older brother had blue, and he actually bought them both thinking they were like substantially different games, and was really disappointed when he's like, "Wait a second, this is the same
There's
thing."
like 8 more Pokemon.
Yeah, so he gave me red, and then we were able to play and trade together and stuff. So that was kind of fun. And then yellow was probably my favorite of them.
Oh, so you did have yellow with
Yeah,
Pikachu
yellow
following
was the
around.
best. I remember when yellow came out, I was like, this is pretty much the same game, but you get all of the starters instead of having to choose just one.
Exactly. Like when you were playing red, do you remember who your starter was?
Yeah, I went with Charmander.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Charmander's
I
my
went,
guy.
yeah. So I had blue growing up, and then so I went with Squirtle, and then I ended up getting a red, and then I don't know why I got the red. I want to say it was just so I could complete my Pokédex. And then I ended up getting Charizard. And then once I was able to, and then I would have like my main game and the game that I would just get Pokemon on and constantly like trade it to myself. So yeah.
I'd be curious if people in the chat want to let us know what starter they rolled with in Gen 1.
Yeah. If
I
basic
assume. Yeah, I was
if
just going to
basic
bring up
trainer
basic
is
trainer.
anything but Bulbasaur.
And we
Bulbasaur.
got to kick him. I think he's one of your mods right now, but
He
Professor Oak,
is.
be on this one.
I don't know if you ever get a chance to watch Professor Oak's one of my mods. He also has a channel I definitely recommend giving a subscribe to. He's had like Mason on, done some live chats. Next week they're doing a pretty awesome chat too. So Professor Oak actually just had somebody on from PSA, and during that PSA conversation they talked about the what is it called, card registry. Do you have any cards registered at PSA under the registry?
Yeah, recently, I guess it wasn't recently, it was like last year. I've finally dabbled in that and I registered some of my complete first edition holo sets. And so I have complete sets for, see, I think I got Fossil done, Team Rocket, Neo Destiny, Gym Challenge, most of Neo Discovery, most of Neo Genesis. So I'm up there on some of them, but there's others that I haven't really done a whole lot of work with. Like that's one of the things I'm trying to look into right now is I never really cared for Gym Heroes as much as Gym Challenge. So that wasn't as much of a priority. So that one only has like a
That makes
handful of
sense
pens in
though
it.
why you didn't care, because Gym Challenge had all the good
Yeah,
cards.
Gym Challenge was by far superior. I mean,
Yeah,
besides Sabrina's Gengar, it's like
yeah,
Gym Challenge is the way to go.
but
And the
even the
Moltres.
Sabrina's Gengar English version kind of got robbed out of the good artwork for that anyway. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
I'm not a big Japanese collector, but I am a little jealous about that card in Japanese opposed to English. So
I actually have a
so
bunch of WotC Hollows in Japanese as well that I've acquired over the years. And I'll probably grade some of those at some point, depending on what prices look like. And otherwise, they're just binder collections. But I do really like the Gengar. I've also been a
yeah,
big fan of the Blaine's Moltres. That's another one of my favorites.
yeah.
I think in Japan, it
So
was just one gym set, wasn't it? Wasn't divided into two.
no, there was Gym 1 and Gym 2, and then Gym 2 had all the good cards again. So yeah, there are two different gym sets for Japanese. Now, you mentioned you have do you have complete first edition sets of Neo Genesis? So do you have a Lugia?
I did.
You did.
I
You got
did.
rid of it?
I did.
No
Yep.
longer, huh?
Nope. That one I couldn't afford to keep, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of those cards that just 2020 ran away with that card.
It did. That was probably the most difficult collecting decision that I've ever made. But there were so many opportunities to like pick up more than just that card. And so I was like, I need to like focus on completing more and letting the one go. You know what I mean? And I had another 9 on hand. So it was hard to justify. And it was a very sad moment for me, but that is one that has left the collection.
Now, did you sell all? I don't want to get like too personal, but
No, you're
did you
fine.
sell everything through eBay or did you dabble with PWCC or?
Yeah, I've sold a little bit through PWCC, usually for those larger type of items. I don't want to do those on eBay myself. Those are the types that
Exactly
I
the
would
same, yeah.
consign. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I do like running my eBay store and having that interaction with people. But as far as like those larger items, it's just too much liability, I think.
So I see Rattle's in the chat. Good to see you, Rattle. I see a lot of familiar names: Ancient Mew, Felipe, Professor Oak, Agent, or Ryan. I see Pac Menace. Good to see you, Christopher Mars, Andrew. It's always, I always enjoy Pokemon DNAs and hear a lot of familiar faces. That's I think that's one of the best things about YouTube, and one of the best things about what we're doing is just that interaction, and really getting to hear some people. So, and I see Derek in the chat, Smitty. Smitty said classics never go out of style. That's why I collect CGC 8.5s. The
Those
classic CGC slab before the change in grading criteria.
those 8.5 grades are the most infuriating thing to me ever. Like there have been times when I feel like PSA has just like, I don't know, they've gone through these phases of just giving out like straight 8.5s. And it's maybe like a little bit of OCD on my part, but at some point, I think I'd rather just have an 8 than the 8.5. That's
Yeah.
just me.
That's just the boomer in us where we're like, give us the 8. I don't want the 8.5. And
I think so.
it's funny because Dan Catchmall Collectible said he's also got a lot of 8.5s. And for every single one of his 8.5s that he's cracked and resubmitted to PSA, he said never one time has he had a repeat grade. It's always been like a grade lower, a grade higher, or potentially like even a 10. And I think that's going to eventually happen with a lot of CGC cards in the future too.
And I know,
Have you ever, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I know a lot of people have like been specifically using that strategy of looking for those under grades or those on the fence grades from other grading companies for the purpose of cracking and regrading, or even in some cases, pulling them into a binder set, knowing that they can get a decent value on what's otherwise a mint card.
Yeah. So I'm also in that group of people that are doing that. But sadly, a lot of the cards that I've decided will grade higher are cards that I actually graded myself. So I really got beat up on that one. But so I gotta ask you, have you ever cracked a slab and resubmitted it trying to get a higher grade? Or are you of the mindset it's just okay, I got this, this is what it is?
Overwhelmingly, that's generally the approach that I have is I don't like to crack slabs and resubmit them. There have been a few that have been egregiously bad that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to crack this. Even if in some cases it's not even worth it to regrade at that point. I'm like, I'm just going to throw it into a binder or something and just enjoy it that way. But I'd say like 98% of the time, even if I felt like it got robbed, I'm like, oh, I could make an extra $100 if this upgraded to the next grade. It's just, it is what it is. It's just part of collecting, I think, where it is a
Yeah.
subjective process of grading. So I'm not going to fight it too much, but there have been a few that I've been like, why is this an 8? This is possibly a 10, maybe a 9. But that's been maybe like 15 or fewer cards, I think, over 10
Yeah.
years, 12 years.
Oh, okay. Do you remember the first time you ever submitted to PSA?
Yeah, I wouldn't say vividly, but I had purchased, well, let me back up a little bit. When I first was collecting as a kid, one of my goals was collecting a first edition base set. Condition didn't matter to me. Had a binder for it. Most of the cards were pretty dinged up and beat up. And I wasn't even close to finishing it, but I had like maybe 40 of the cards. I'm not sure how many, but maybe like 4 of the holographic cards. So when I first started like buying again, once eBay was a thing, and I was like, oh, I can actually source some of these cards. I was buying up lots, and one of the lots that I first bought had like 5 first edition base hollows in it. And I was like, grading looks kind of cool. Some of these other guys on YouTube have these cards in the slabs, and that's a good way to protect them and just display them. And it's like, I'm going to do that. So that was my first submission, was like a handful of first edition Wizards of the Coast hollows from base set. I think it was maybe like 6 cards. I think the first submission was with their free vouchers when you get this the membership.
Yep.
Yeah. I think they all came back as 9s. It was like a Zapdos, a Chansey, a Nidoking, an Alakazam.
Hmm. So were they all just unlimited or were they first editions?
Oh, those were all first edition
Oh, they
base set
weren't the
hollows.
first
Yeah.
editions. Okay. I mean, that's still pretty good. Do you still have those all in your collection?
Still have every one of those. At various points, I had graded doubles of them, and I was like, this one is newer. It's got a better label, and it'll match the majority of my collections. But then there's like that sentimental element where I was like, we'll sell the new one. We'll keep the first one.
Yeah. No, it is tough. And, you being a gym leader and stuff, and especially being a gym leader in the 2000s, do you have all 53 Black Star promos? Yeah.
Yes, and I will proudly say that most of them came from when I was in the league through either actually the Wizards of the Coast distribution or from trading with other people in the league.
No,
But
that's
then a
awesome.
significant number of them were after our league had already closed. I'm not sure like what the last one was. It was maybe somewhere in the 40s. I remember like the Scissor, the Iggly buff. Some of those ones were like the last ones that we actually received from
Yeah,
Wizards.
the later ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think so? In your experience, do you think the populations of those cards are a lot lower than some of the real early ones? When you think about like Ivy Pikachu, the non-hollow Mew cards like that, do you look at those as just being way more readily available than those older ones? Like even like the Meryl, I see there's bricks and bricks of those around forever.
I mean, there's some that are like still achieving a pretty good premium in PSA 10 just due to low population. I feel like just from my observations when I was in the leagues, like that they're unbelievably common. So I'm not sure if that's skewing or biasing my opinion on that now, but I think you're right. There are cards from the Black Star promo set that I have seen literal bricks for that are like still in the case. I've never
Yeah.
had a brick myself, but others I've only seen like handfuls at a time. You think like Birthday
What?
Pikachu or the Venusaur, some of the ones through Nintendo Power.
Yeah. What number is the Bumblebee Pikachu? Is that number 27? I think.
That
Whatever
yeah,
the number is, there's a lot of those Bumblebee Pikachus out there too. So I
I think
feel
it
like
was
that's one of
TCA
those.
Gaming that had like a video with having like those.
Oh, probably. Yeah, TCA he's graded a ton of Black Star promos in his day
Yeah.
and movie promos and you name it. That was a big, I would say that was one of the bread and butters of his real early purchases was getting a lot of those like promos and grading them. I can only imagine how many of those he has.
And as long as we're talking about promos, that's one of the subsets that I'll probably start looking for at some point is I've always loved and been fascinated with the W stamp promos. And I've just never bothered to like collect them specifically or grade them. I think I might have a copy, at least one copy of each.
Mhm.
Condition wise, I don't know. They're probably not very good, but that's another subset of random card that I think would be cool to collect. Relatively easy.
Yeah, it's not the W one, but I know you do have an E3 stamp, Shadowless Red Cheeks Pikachu, right? And a PSA 10 too.
Yeah, I've got one that I graded in a PSA 10 sealed, and then one that's raw. That's a card that I've just
That's
always been
awesome.
fascinated with and have felt like was a really historical card that, in my opinion, I think it's an underrated and underregarded card just because like it was out and distributed before Pokemon was actually released. It's like one of the first English cards. And so to me, that was always one that I thought was like particularly cool for its historical backstory.
Yeah, whenever I think about like, Pikachu, there's tons of variations for base set Pikachu, but I always think about that E3 and then yes, the red cheeks is just like on this other tier too. So you have like so everybody out there listening, there is a red cheeks variant and a yellow cheeks variant of that E3 card and the red cheeks just always being a little bit more in demand. It always carries a premium. But I also look at like the Australian the 99 Poke Tour Pikachu. I always think of those like kind of in a way neck and neck, or at least I think of them very similar, those two cards. Do you have
Yeah,
any of those?
I don't. And I've been wanting to get one of those for a long time. And it hasn't been like a major priority for me because, again, the set collecting is primarily what I'm after. But I've
Mhm.
always thought those were really cool too. And it's at least to the E3 version. So it does have
Yeah.
that parallel. I totally agree.
Yeah. Uh, let's see. Let's see. Number basic trainer said it is number 27. Okay.
Well done.
They said I got a good I got a good memory. Yeah. No, the old card shop said Eevee promo number 11, best wizard of the coast. So I had old card shop on my live and or was I on his live? I think we talked about that Eevee promo number 11 because he's just got binders of it. But then I asked him if he has like the JR Rally, the Japanese version of it. It's like the glossy version of that EV number 11 promo. And again, that's like one of those few Japanese cards I actually kind of like.
Yeah. I really like that card for its look, But also since I was playing in the league, that was a highly playable card. I was never particularly amazing or anything or like a competitive threat in the game, but I like the Pokemon power of that one. The evolutionary. I
Okay.
can't
I
remember
never knew.
exactly
See,
what it was, but
I was out of the league at that point.
yeah, that was a cool one because it was like whenever I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was like whenever a Pokemon evolves or whatever, you can search your deck for an evolution card of Eevee and then add it to your hand. And so it just made it really well used in tandem with Dark Dragonite and Dark Dragonair. Or like when one evolves, you get to
Okay.
search for another. And when one evolves, you get to search. So it's like a really easy way to quickly. This is
Yeah.
probably irrelevant to almost anybody here unless they played Vintage back in the day. But really
Yeah.
cool combination between those two. They had some synergy.
No, that is awesome. I'm always interested in like the older playability, especially in the sets that I wasn't really around for. Like, obviously I know like the Neo Gen Cleffa and cards like that are like very popular because they, had very good game, or I guess they kind of broke the game mechanics back in the day in a way. So you know about those cards, but like I didn't know that EV number 11 Black Star promo was. So
Do you know the story behind the Neo Genesis Sneasel with this Super Trainer
no.
Showdown? So the Sneasel was like from Neo Genesis, a rare card. It wasn't a holographic, but it was such a broken card with its beat up attack. Took 2 darkness energies, which added 20 damage. I think you flipped a coin for every benched Pokemon, and then it did 20 damage times the number of heads. And it wasn't just yours, if I'm remembering correctly, it was also the opponent's. And so they had these massive billboard printouts that banned Sneasel from play in any of the like Pokemon Tour events or in the Pokemon Championships at the Super Trainer Showdown. And I
Really?
can't remember who it is, but there's somebody that has one of those big billboards still, like as a decoration in their house. And so that's something that I always thought was cool. But
It's probably
totally,
cool Trainer Ryan.
totally broken card. I actually competed in that Pokemon Tour, and it was right when Neo Discovery was coming out, and for prizes every time you advance to the next round, you'd get like a handful of packs. So it was a really, really fun day as a young kid.
Yeah. So you never were so competitive that you ever made it to like worlds or anything, nothing like that, right?
Right. And this was like a regional tournament. And I actually did pretty well in my age group. I think I made like semifinals or the one before
Oh,
that.
nice.
And yeah, so I made it through a few rounds. And I think like at the end, they had a couple different sessions. So if you got eliminated, you could come back and do the next session. But I think the one that I went the furthest in, the prize was like a Pokemon League shirt, a Pokemon League hat, which I still have hanging up. And then I think it was like a full 36 packs of Neo Discovery packs. So I was like, wait,
Yeah.
I'm getting to play what I love and I'm getting free packs. What is this? Because I didn't buy a lot of packs in those days. So it was like more packs that I got just from playing the game in that one day than maybe like an entire year worth of purchasing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome though. Yes. I had a Echo Based Collectibles on the channel, and he was in the 2003 Worlds, and that was like right at the transition between Wizard of the Coast kind of losing the license for Pokemon and Nintendo taking over. And he said he got 10th place. And for the prize for 10th place was 10 Skyrich booster boxes. Like, can you imagine putting a dollar amount to that sort of like that's like
That's a,
what let's say $50 a boost, or sorry, $50,000 a booster box. That's a $500,000 worth of prize cards.
even if this were like back then before they were worth that, still what an amazing price. If you could walk away
Oh
with
yeah,
like 50 booster
10 booster
boxes,
boxes.
and
You
you're
couldn't
gonna
even
come,
carry them.
yeah, that'd be amazing.
I asked him what the first place got, and he said the way he explained it was like they just got a pallet of stuff. It was like they brought a pallet and it was like, this is your wins. So that's
Yeah, I
pretty
remember
awesome.
the Pokemon tour was really cool, and I assume it's this similar concept to what they do with like the lead up to Worlds, the different qualifying events. But I just remember like massive mall, tons of like employees and people with their staff shirts on. They did like deck checks and they had different sessions and they had different age groups happening in different areas. And they had like the trading zone where you get points and get special promo cards for trading. And then they had like the practice area. And it was just like a child's dream at that point. And to have the opportunity to go to something like that definitely a thank you to my mom. I know she really didn't want to drive all the way out there for that or sit around all day and be bored, but it meant a lot to my brother and I. So it was really cool.
Shout out to all the moms out there
All the
who
moms,
made Pokemon. Yeah. All the
Pokemon.
Pokemoms. Yep, exactly. So do you ever play any modern Pokemon? Like, do you download, Pokemon trading card game online or anything, or no?
I do not. The game mechanics would be lost on me at this point because it has changed so much. I wish that they would go back to like having some sort of online version of like retro vintage play for all
Mm,
of us boomers that are like, yeah, I want to play the game again, but I'm too lazy to learn all the new stuff. I'd sign up for that. So get on
yeah,
that,
that's
Pokemon.
yeah, that's one of the reasons I stopped really playing. Well, I was never really a big player online, but I just stopped playing mainly not because of the game mechanics so much, but it was just impossible to keep up to date with like decent decks. I was just getting beat all the time, and I was like, ugh, I don't want to keep like putting code cards in, opening packs, trying to do all this stuff. And when you think about Pokemon trading card game online, like cost of entry is very low. Like code cards are nothing. It's just the process of doing it and everything. And just they just need to make a mobile app version. That's all I ask. Pokemon, please make a good mobile app version where I open up my iPhone. There's an app right there. I click on it and then I could just play at will. I don't got to go log on to a computer or anything. So I think if they do that, a lot of people will, potentially trickle back into the trading card game. And if that's the case, I think that could be like a big thing for modern people just learning the game through their phones and then wanting to, actually pick up the physical cards and go into league play and do stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Like what Felipe said, boomer mode. That's what I need.
Yeah.
Boomer mode. Just toggle a
Isn't it?
switch.
Yeah, it's like boomer mode. Isn't it funny? Like Pokemon has gotten to this point where it's like boomers and we're boomers and we're 34 years old.
Yep.
uh,
Complaining about these kids today. You kids and all of your different game mechanics. Back in my day, we
yeah,
had
Rattle
confusion
said,
and sleep.
Rattle said PTCG Geo was mobile. I never had it if it was. Oh, he said on Android. I had an iPhone. Was it available through iPhones through the app? I could have been wrong all this time. Pac Menace said Pokemoms and Pokedads everywhere. Do you think now this is like kind of like a more or I don't know how to phrase it, but do you think that our generations, like eventually when everybody starts to have kids and settle down, and do you think we're going to be pushing Pokemon on our kids and then inadvertently creating this new generation of collectors?
It's an interesting idea. And if that's the case, I wonder if it would actually have the opposite effect. There's usually that like instinct from kids to rebel against what their parents or what the previous generation thought of as cool. So I think the best thing going for Pokemon right now, as far as these new generations, is the idea of it being retro and vintage. But I don't know if it's like pushed on to kids. I have a hard time believing that like they would pick up that inherent honest interest in it that would sustain them for a long period of time, unless it was something that was at least to some degree initiated internally on their own part.
Yeah, I think I would challenge that a little bit because there are some things in my life, like there's certain bands that I really like that I normally probably wouldn't like, but it was because like my dad took me to certain concerts when I was a kid. So I saw that, you know, band play live and it was one of his favorite bands. And maybe it wouldn't have been one of mine, or definitely like some things I did with my mom growing up where like, she was really passionate about something because she was passionate. She took me along with her. So then now that I've gotten older, like I've learned to really enjoy that stuff and probably wouldn't have if it wasn't for her. So I'm wondering if like I have a 10-month at home. So if when he starts growing up, if he remembers the Pokemon pack opening experience, not just being him, where, you and I, we have this pack opening experience when we were a kid, but our parents, with the exception of maybe bringing us to get the packs and bringing us to leagues and stuff, like it's not the same. Now, I do wonder if he will have a memory of like opening up Pokemon cards with his dad. So when he gets older, I don't know. I, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think you could definitely be right. Like exposure is never going to be a bad thing. The question I would have is like, at what point would the exposure turn into a lasting interest or a passion? Like, where does that dividing line come? And I think in
Sure.
that regard, maybe the exposure is like the door being open, but there's still that sense of self agency that needs to happen in order for it to be sustainable. So I don't know. It's a good question though.
Yeah. And I just had Z and G imported on the other day, and he's building a collection for his daughter who's way too young to appreciate Pokemon. And he's building like minimum PSA 9 collection of just like tons of Watsy hollows and stuff like that. And his thought process is when she gets old enough, 18 or 21 or whatever, like those are going to be her cards to do with whatever she wishes. So if she just has no attachment to it, like hopefully Pokemon is still popular 15 years from now, or and maybe she'll just be like, okay, I'm going to flood the market now with all these
Yeah.
PSA 9 Watsy cards because she doesn't have an attachment. So who knows?
You're setting up when you're setting up a collection for your child, that's good parenting right there.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I've already like thought about it, and I don't know how I want to go about it. And maybe like, so let me ask you a question. If you were going to do it, or I could just ask your advice, like what do you think would be a good setup for him? Do you think I should go after like some modern stuff because it's part of like the timeline he was born, or should I give him more vintage stuff, or what do you think?
It's a great question. Um, Man, I don't know. I think if it were me and I were in that situation, I would want to make like a time capsule of it in addition to having like things that I thought were fundamentally good on a collecting level, but then also things that are reflective of like the trends over time. That way it has that sentimental and personal connection as well. So maybe I would look at
I
getting some
think
cards from like significant moments in child's development to accompany some of those like more collectible, higher value item type pieces.
I love that thought. He just started crawling. So, like, that's a big moment. So,
Like
yeah,
milestone cards, like what's the current popular card of the time when this thing happened? And then what was the current popular card when this thing happened? And then maybe just have that as a supplement to some of the things that you just think are a good collection to begin with.
no, I love the thought of that. And then
Then
I could
then
put a
write a
note.
letter about each one and
Write
put
it.
it in like a PSA sleeve or something, or post it on the card on the top loader or whatever, or the card saver. That way they
Dude,
can discover
that
them
is,
as a calendar.
I'm 100% doing that now. Like 100% I'm doing that.
Oh, Rattle said birthday Pikachu for birthday. That's a good idea.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least we have, multiple birthday Pikachus. We could give them, the original OG Black Star promo, and then we could give them the Japanese version. Then we could give them the celebrations version. So
It
no,
would be kind of cool though if
that,
you did this idea and maybe like you took a picture with your child holding the card or with the card near them and made like a larger like scrapbook kind of thing out of it so that when you give them the collection to inherit, then you can kind of flip through it together and talk through it.
I love that. I love that thought. What do you think what do you think is a good starter card? What do you think is the first card I should do? I feel like it should be a Pikachu,
Yeah,
right?
you're probably right on that. Yeah. Here's what you do. You grab one of each of the starters, something simple like a shadowless one, or if you want to, high roll and go with first edition starter Pikachu. Well, I guess the Pikachu
I got it.
isn't expensive, but
Yeah.
get the Squirtle, the Charmander, and the Bulbasaur. Lay all three out in front of your kid and let them pick one, and then record it. Make an NFT.
Yeah.
I'm
I
just
got a
kidding. Probably
non-hollow Skyridge PSA 10 Pikachu common. Thinking maybe that will be the first card.
How about
Oh, that is
get one of each of the starters and be like, this is where you started your journey. You're playing Pokemon Yellow. You get them all. Then every milestone there on out is significantly more difficult. And maybe you present some like gym leader battles that they have to pass in order to get the next card.
I love that.
This is your
That is
badge.
such a dude. I'm definitely doing that. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna have to record like everyone, or maybe I do it without him noticing. Like maybe he's got it when he gets older and stuff. Like his back is turned, so he'll have the cards as a baby. But
Yeah.
then there will be a gap before like I give them to him. Maybe I'll give him to him when he's like 18, and then be like, okay, here's your Pokemon collection that I've been building for the last 18 years. And if you think about it, he would build his own collection inadvertently, right? Because if I'm only giving him cards for major milestones, like he would be the control, he would still be in control of his collection because, if he does poorly or like, let's say, doesn't have big moments or whatever, like maybe he wouldn't have got a card. Like, let's say, oh, you made the honor roll this semester.
Yeah.
So I decide to give you a Pokemon card, but let's say he didn't make the honor roll that semester. He would have inadvertently like kept himself from a card. Oh, I love that.
Oh, you're gonna incentivize it.
Yeah, I love it. I'm
Or like
definitely doing it.
lost first tooth. Here's a card picture.
And what if we try and I
Crap.
could probably like connect it to Pokemon, like if you lose a tooth, like what would be a Pokemon that has like a Loudor or something, like a big smile, something
Yeah.
like that. I love it. I'm doing it.
First time on an airplane, learned to fly, got it like a Pidgeot or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, like probably the Pidgeot was probably first. Everybody, like when you had the TM for fly in Pokemon Blue, like it was probably everybody's Pidgeot by that point was the first one to learn that. Yeah. No, I love it.
First time playing
Great.
hooky and staying home to sleep. Here's your Snorlax.
I love it.
You skip school, get a Snorlax. I don't know if we'd want to reinforce those habits.
No, but we could do it on the DL where he doesn't know. And yeah, like here's your jungle Snorlax. You finally unlock this card.
It would be really cool if you like documented it all in some way, whether it was a series of video clips or like notes or like an actual scrapbook. That then you have that as like the story, and then you have that opportunity, like maybe following graduation or something, where you can sit down and pass along the collection, figure out if what we want to do with it, keep it forever, save some cards, sell some for college, whatever. But then you can go like, let's take a look back at where all these came from and why this card was chosen and why this card was chosen and why this one was chosen. That could be really cool.
It is, yeah. That's gonna make a great video someday for him. And I could just make it into like a little montage for him, like a compilation of all the cards. Yeah, I'm definitely doing it, man.
Do it.
So the old
He
card
says
shop
tie a slab to his tooth.
yeah, that's how he lost his first. Yeah, we pull it out with a slab.
Yeah.
The old card shop said, "What do you think kids will want a slab?" Or wait, I think he meant to say, "Why do you think kids will want a slab?" Old card shop, it's gonna be my kid. My kid is gonna probably want a slab.
I think you were describing it as the idea of like building the collection over time, but not like passing along the collection until like reaching an adult age or like, I don't know, later on in adolescence. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, and to be honest, he wouldn't even know that the collection existed, with the exception of if he somehow finds his YouTube channel and goes back to 2022, the February 19th, and rewatches this video. Like with the exception of that, yeah, I would just do it secretly, and then at the 18th birthday or maybe like college graduation gift or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be like you're just handing a slab to a 7-year-old. Like, here you go.
No.
Congratulations on your first school speaking lines in the play. Have this chunk of plastic.
Yeah. Rattle said first birthday equals Kanto starter's choice, evolves into the next card partway through the year, age 2, Johto, etc. You could do that too. You go regions by region, just do all the starters.
That's not a bad idea either.
Yeah. And we're up to Gen 8 already. So at least we have 8 years ahead of time. And then hopefully more. Yeah, that's possible.
Man, we should have paywalled this video.
Should have paywalled it.
It's a joke from the previous stream.
I know.
Yeah.
Uh, so people are asking for discount codes for Rattle's hats in the chat. Basic Trainer said to quote Cheval's, "When I die, put Pokemon in the grave." It's like you can't be buried with your collection. It's like, don't challenge me. Trainer said, "What if they don't care about Pokemon? Then a piece of me will die inside." Trainer Yellow.
That's when you disown your children. And as long as you're living under my roof, you'll believe what I believe and like what I like.
Yeah. If I plan to live vicariously through my children, they need to like Pokemon.
That was one of my favorite lines from The Simpsons. Homer was with Bart at the kitchen table, and Homer forced Bart to butter his bacon. He's like, "Boy, as long as you're under my roof, you'll do what I do and believe as I believe. Now butter that bacon."
Yeah. Believe it or not, Simpsons is like my favorite television show growing up.
Mine
And
too.
all Simpsons is just classic line after classic line.
And the classics never go out of style.
Perfect.
Sorry, you set it up. I had to take
Oh, and you slam dunked it. That was for I got like this goofy smile on my face. That was great. So yeah, if the chat has any more questions that they want me or Matt to ask, now is your time to ask them. Is getting a little late on the East Coast. I do have work tomorrow, but are you good to go for about 15 more minutes, Matt?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So Ancient Muse said Expedition is the best e-reader set. There, I said it.
Ooh, that's a hot take for a lot of people.
Yeah, I do like Expedition, but it's not my number one. Expedition to sorry, go ahead.
What would you go with? Are you
Skyridge? Yeah. Skyridge I would say is definitely my favorite, but Expedition's solid. Like Aquapolis is solid. It depends on what you like.
What I like about Expedition is it's very reminiscent to me of base set in a lot of ways. And you've got the Mew and the Mewtwo and the different the stage 2 starters. So yeah. I like that one a lot. I think I'm with you as far as artwork though, probably Skyridge.
Well, like Expedition, yeah, I like the Blastoise where he's like underwater, half, and then there's also like the for alligator art, which is very similar to like half the body cool. Underwater. And yeah, the Mewtwo is great. And then the Mew is great, like you were mentioning. And then I don't love the Charizard though in the set though. It's not great. Where at least Skyridge has the Crystal Charizard, and then it's got the Celebi and the Golem and the Crobat. But then even the hollows are just great. You got like, especially if you like evolutions for Skyridge, like the Umbreon is beautiful, even though I would say that maybe Aquapolis is the Umbreon is maybe the nicer, but like, it's still got the Jolteon, the Vaporeon, the Flareon for Skyridge. The Alakazam is a nice card. It's just, and the Gengar. Oh, it's just all around good set.
Definitely.
Rattle said, "Can we get a follow-up stream with PK versus Classics and a PTCGO best of 7?" So that would be great. So Classics, who isn't familiar with game mechanics, and me, who hasn't played in a couple of years.
Should be a pretty even match then.
Yeah. It would be pretty easy. We could just load up a bunch of like, I don't know, random packs and stuff and just see what we can build. I'd be down for that. Pac Menace said, favorite modern set to you?
I don't have a lot of experience with modern sets. I've opened some evolutions. I've been sitting on my celebrations waiting to celebrate. So we have that. Instinctually, I'm going to say celebrations because that has reprints of a lot of cards that mean a lot to me on a personal level. Otherwise, having said that, what would I choose? I don't know. Probably one of those two.
Agent Crypto said, hello, I'm going to need a top 10 Pokemon investment video due tomorrow by 10 a.m. Well, agent, I'll already give you the answer to that. So first thing you got to do, build yourself a time machine. Go back in time to 1997. Get yourself a couple trophy Pika, Japanese 1, 2, 3 Japanese Pikas. Get yourself an illustrator Pikachu. Get yourself a couple Charizard first edition. And that's it. That's it. All you need is a time machine. There you go. Those would be your top 10 investments.
And
Oh,
that's one of the things too. A lot of people will talk about like, oh, I wish I could go back in time and then I would get this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, if you think about it, a lot of those things weren't even accessible, even if you had the time machine, because it wasn't like you could just go on the internet and figure out where to buy a first edition base set box. Like they were almost never available. They were just like one specific part of the country. And even then it took
yeah.
a little bit of foreknowledge or connections with people to get it. So even just the time machine probably wouldn't be enough.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be enough. And I don't know if you got a chance to watch live that I had a guy MK Poke CC. I've talked about him a few times now on lives, and he was an older trophy card collector. And one of the cards he picked up in 2009 while he was a junior in high school was the number 3 trainer, Super Secret Battle Mewtwo. And he was the first person that ever graded a 9. He was washing dishes, saved up $1,800 and bought that card. Like just most ridiculous stories ever, like, but the only way you're going to get some of that, and that card, now sells for 6 figures. So the only way you're really going to make that much money is you have to be the crazy guy spending $1,800 as a junior in high school and literally all the money you saved up for an entire year to buy a card. Like you have to be that guy. And
without
if you
any
want,
without any precedent of it ever being valuable at any point in the future and go, you know what? Am I going to go to college or am I going to have that one piece of cardboard?
yeah,
Take the cardboard.
yeah. And the same guy, MK Poke CC, he traded for his illustrator Pikachu. Like he actually traded cards in order to get that card, which is the definition. And he put it a perfect way. He's like, that is the definition of what this is. It's the Pokemon trading card game. And he was able to work his way up to literally the top of the mountain to the illustrator Pikachu by trading cards. And like cards he traded was, one of them was like a PSA 10 Kangaskhan, and some other cards were all part of that trade. But those were all cards that he was able to acquire just through like grind until eventually he got to this illustrator Pikachu. And at the time, he said that Pikachu was valued at like 10,000, which is just mind blowing when you think about it. But
And that trade was that last year or 2 years ago? He was the one that had like the trophy illustrations that were part of the trade, right? Or is that somebody else?
so he did do so. I don't want to talk about his trades, but yeah, he did have those 3 illustrate or the Arita artworks done with the
Yeah.
Pikachu's holding the trophy, and it said Michael on the bottom.
The only reason I brought that up is I'm pretty sure that was like plastered everywhere to his Instagram where he had disclosed that. So
Okay.
I hope I didn't step on any toes there,
No,
but I
no,
think
no.
that was
Yeah.
common knowledge.
No, yeah, I don't know what's common knowledge. I
Yeah.
just anytime it's somebody's like more personal stuff. But yeah,
Totally
no, I
fair.
mean, even those Arita artworks are crazy. Like just the
Those are
fact
really
that he was
cool.
able to have those commissioned done. I mean, they're beautiful. He had them graded PSA 10. So uh old card shop said, how many fractional shares of raichu are you buying in liquid marketplace? 0.
All of them.
Oh yeah. They're all my cards on there that they're selling.
How many pre-release Raichus do you have in your collection?
I have a lot of Pikachus that I can stamp that pre-release stamp on if I had a stamp, but I have none. And it is actually like kind of one of my grail cards because I like how polarizing pre-release Raichu is. And I've talked about that before. Like when you talk about a card that has like crazy backstories, and I mean, it's got both backstories. It has like the backstory where it's, well, the people that don't want that card to exist will tell you it doesn't exist. The people that want that card to exist will tell you it exists. But then there's like the real dark history of that card too, of like, people that maybe spent too much money on that card and it ended up being fake. And then all the stuff that they have to go through, like through a personal level. So it has like this dark past to it. But like all as bad as to say, like, all that stuff helps to surround and build this story, which is the pre-release Raichu.
Yeah, I remember going on Pokegym back in the day and reading all the updates and the articles and the speculations about it, and definitely some history and a legacy behind that one for sure.
Yeah. So Trainer DL Yellow said, I think we all knew Pokemon would be valuable in the future. That's a hot take.
I think a lot of us like maybe speculated that it would follow a similar trajectory to some degree as a more established game like Magic. But I, at no point when I started collecting was I like, these prices are going to be even double what I paid for. Like, I thought maybe like they'd appreciate a little bit, but not like what we've seen. I didn't anyway. That wasn't something that like I was looking to in the
No.
future.
I thought Pokemon would have like a upward trajectory, but nothing like it did. And I always talk about this, as prepared as I was for Pokemon to do what it did, I was as little prepared as possible if I really knew. Like, if I really knew, I would have sold my house, I would have sold my car, I would have liquidated every single possible asset I had to the point where I only had liquid cash available, and then I would have went out and bought everything. So there's no, that's like somebody saying, if you knew who was going to win, like the boxing match, right? Like, if you had a sure thing, or the Super Bowl, it's like, well, if I know who's going to win the Super Bowl, the day before, I'm going to liquidate every single asset I have, take that money, put it on the team to win, because I already know the outcome. So there's a reason why people don't do that. So somebody asked about black and white packs. Do you know anything about black and white?
Very little.
Yeah. I actually lost the question. So Evan Whitman said, how do you think sealed black and white era packs will perform long term?
That one's all you. I'm not going to speculate on that because
Yeah,
I just
I
don't
mean,
have the knowledge for it.
listen, black and white sealed collections, real tough speculation. Like, honestly, if it's it's a tough question, because you kind of missed the boat for a lot of it, like black and white went up so high so fast that it's one of those very few products where like the inherent value of the cards you're actually going to pull in a black and white set are so drastically separated from the sealed product price. Like, I don't even know what a lot of the like black and white era stuff sells for right now. But if you wanted to go later black and white and like talk about like the plasmas, like, yeah, Plasma Storm has like the Charizard, the Blastoise, and then the secret rare trainer. But if you're gonna go to so it goes Plasma Storm, Plasma Freeze, Plasma Blast. So Storm has the Charizard, but then like Freeze and Blast, like, that stuff's not really, there's nothing good in it. Legendary Treasures stands alone on its own, like Dark Explorers, but then there's like really crappy products like Emergent Powers, the second set from Black and White, or Black and White base, or I just I'm not going to answer it. It's just there's too much miss the boat in that, where it's going to be so much dependent on you. And if you do want to start going after black and white, the only advice I could give you is you really got to start to understand black and white, really look at the sets, really start to say, okay, like, am I literally just buying this because it's in a sealed pack, or am I actually buying this because I think the product makes sense? And you're probably going to find out that a lot of black and white stuff doesn't make sense, but black and white product has gone crazy. So that's a long-winded answer with zero answer at the end. Yeah. Yeah. Pokemon DNA said Emergent Powers boxes are like 2K. Yeah. They're $2,000 with like $100 worth of value in it, maybe. uh, let's see. But yeah, anything else you want to mention before we wrap up, Matt?
I don't know. We covered a lot of ground. I don't know if there's anything specific weighing on my mind. Unless anybody else has another topic, maybe you have something that you're interested in discussing yet.
So Dank said no valuable chase cards would take sealed collectors to sell into the long term. Yeah. Pokemon DNA said best card in emergent powers is less than $15 raw. Yeah. So like that gives you an example of like how disconnected the cards versus the packs, like where at least you can make the argument for some other sets where at least like if you technically pull the chase card, which is again like the sealed product argument for vintage is really tough, right? Because like let's say a heavy first edition base set pack. Like I don't really know what they sell for, but let's just say they're 15 to 20 grand for a verified heavy base set pack. Sure, you can pull a Charizard first edition in that pack. You gotta at that point it's a 1 in 16 shot because, or sorry, 1 in 15 shot because the Machamp came in the 2-player starter deck. So you still have a 1 in 15 chance, but then you still need that card to grade a 10 opposed to a 9. Like Charizard first edition and a PSA 9 is like $24,000. So, and that it's just so, it's such a tough argument. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. So Pokeknowledge asked you classics if you could trade part of your entire collection for one card / item, what card item would it be? Probably nothing at this point because I would just if I got rid of so much of my collection, I would probably take so long to rebuild it. Like I think mentally I would be so distraught that I would like almost want to leave the hobby if half my collection or most of my collection went away for one single card.
Yeah, I think it would be counterproductive to a lot of my goals to do that. Really, I'm trying to cover as much as possible from the sets that I originally went out for. So if it was like downgrade a number of cards to get one card, I feel like that would be further away from my initial goal. So I'd rather have like the quantity of cards covered from the sets rather than having even like some of the more rare or expensive ones. There are things that I would like say are, I don't know, interesting history or things that I just want just out of the sake of like maybe it doesn't really fit my collection. I wouldn't liquidate a chunk of my collection for it, but one of the things that I'm collecting in addition to cards is the different gym leader Wizards of the Coast t-shirts that were issued each year. And so they had different ones that were released during like the actual gym leader ones, but then also like during Super Trainer Showdowns and other Pokemon League issued shirts. And there's a couple from the Neo era that I've seen before, so I know they exist, but I've never seen them listed anywhere. And so I like collecting shirts. I fold them up and I put them in these like little display things, almost like people do with jerseys in sports, but just smaller. And so there's a few that are missing, and I'm like, I really want those shirts.
So do you only just go after English stuff, or do you look at any of the super vintage, like Japanese, like Charizard Mega Battle or anything like that, or you don't really go after anything that obscure?
Yeah, probably just the English stuff more so, but some of those shirts very easy to find. Others are like, if it wasn't for the fact that I've seen some pictures in magazines or something, I would assume they were fictional.
Oh, okay. So they're that rare then, huh?
I don't know if they're really that rare. It's just if I guess maybe they are. Who knows? I just haven't seen them up for sale. And even the ones that are really common generally aren't things people would think to sell on a platform like eBay. Like they wouldn't see value in this used worn t-shirt from 20 years ago. So that
Yeah.
could be part of it too.
No, that makes sense. Let's see. So Doodles in the Membrane said, do you think there's a difference in modern now with more artistic, unique arts than earlier modern sets? I'm starting to think new modern is a different age. So that's a tough question, and he would need to let me know, like, where does he consider modern starts? Is modern for him early black and white? So are you comparing full art? So you're comparing like, black and white full arts to modern full arts? And I would say like, yeah, but it's it's subjective, right? Or are you talking character rare, like modern cards, and then you can like comparing them to the Cosmic Eclipse? Like, I still think the Pikachu, Cosmic Eclipse character rare is better than a lot of the stuff that was in Brilliant Stars. But then a lot of people would probably like argue that like it's subjective, I guess. Um, so Squeaks Game World said, if you haven't yet, Matt, you should reach out to Vince. I'm gonna butcher this name, Kreckler and Jim Ballard. If anyone has them or knows someone who does, they would be your guys. Okay, so there you go.
Yeah, maybe I'll hit you up later, Squeaks, for some contact information on that.
Yeah, and Squeaks, I'm gonna hit you up too. Look for an email from me. We got to get you on this channel too for a live. I think a lot of people would like to see that. We did get Squeaks in a little bit at the end of our my live stream that I had with Radar. Squeaks did stop by, so that was a lot of fun. But I think me and Squeaks need a nice one-on-one.
I agree. Big fan, Squeaks. Love your stuff too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. But yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up for the night because I do have work tomorrow and I will turn into a pumpkin. But with that said, Matt, I just want to say thank you. And I do want you to know that when it comes to people in this hobby that I think are really, really good for this hobby, and who I think are like super genuinely good people, it's you. And I mentioned this before the live starts, but I have never one single time in my entire life heard anybody say anything negative about you. So that is like such an awesome compliment for a person where like to never hear one negative thing. And the content you put out, the quality of it, the amount of time and effort you put into it, your enthusiasm in the hobby, you are just all around like everything you should be in a Pokemon collector and enthusiast. Like, you check all those boxes. So I just want to let you know, like, everybody out there, everybody who's watching this video, everybody who will watch this video after the fact, I can say with all certainty that every single person respects you as a collector and just enthusiast in this hobby.
Well, that's some really high praise, and I don't take that lightly. So I really appreciate that. We'll say that after collecting in the solitary absence of dark basement dwelling for all those years, it just feels so much more invigorating and fulfilling to have other people to collect with. And I think that's one of the large positive takeaways from all of the hype and all of the mania that's unfolded even prior to 2020, as Pokemon was starting to get some momentum and some traction amongst the older generation, but also maybe now unifying the younger generations as well. So there's a fair middle ground where everyone can coexist and have reasonable prices and accessibility to cards. I think as the older, more experienced collectors out there, it's people like us that have to be that reasonable and approachable and good, upstanding ambassadors. That's really what we are. We're ambassadors for the hobby. And if we do our job right and we're good ambassadors, there's other people that are going to want to be part of this. And I think we would all agree that that's ultimately what we're here for. That's what brought us in to begin with. But inversely, if we don't, well, then it's going to die. And the thing that we put so much time and passion and care and concern in will die with it. And nobody wants that. So we all have a role to play. Even if you're one of the people that's out there lurking and you don't feel like you're particularly immersed in the hobby, you're just as important as anybody else that's here at the table. So definitely keep fighting the good fight. That's my message to everyone, and be that message of positivity. I think we need more empathy for everyone. If we can do that, like I said, then we're doing our job as ambassadors.
Yeah, perfectly put. And for everybody else out there, thank you guys for all tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next video.